Officials of law enforcement, justice and social development agencies from throughout the region are attending a conference here on sustainable human development and citizen security. The Ministry of Home Affairs and National Security is hosting in partnership with the United Nations Development Programme, the UNDP. The UN agency says it is taking a people-centered approach to the issues. Representative Lara Blanco told the opening session that there is growing concern that governance practices in the Caribbean have become challenged by high levels of crime, violence, and a decline in rule of law.
Boasts high political stability, voice and accountability, and effective governments, there is a growing concern that segments of the population, particularly the youth, have not been adequately addressed. Evidence also points to the fact that increasing rates of crime and violence in the Caribbean has further eroded socioeconomic development opportunities, posing threats to the region's performance on the achievement of agreed global commitments and its human development gains. Challenges to citizen security in the Caribbean result in pervasive, recurrent, or intense threats to public, social, political, and economic order posed by transnational organized crime, violence, public fear, and insecurity. The government of St. Lucia and its institutions are faced with pressing demands to respond to such complex matters, and at UNDP, we have corroborated that these challenges can be solved in a sustainable manner through a multi-sectoral and people-centered approach.
The UN representative went on to reference news items across the region that show people under the age of 30 falling victim and perpetuating violent crimes. She called on the government to do more to address the crisis.
We are seeing in those same news and reports an increased presence of firearms, leading as well to an increase in lethal violence and reinforcing the need for improved firearm and ammunition control. It also signals that citizens are no longer resolving conflict through peaceful means. Such events not only drive fear in citizens, which is as pervasive as crime and violence itself, but it also limits their abilities to lead fulfilling lives and reduces the opportunities available to them.
And the drug trade continues to fuel violence, gun running, and instability. But poverty is also an equally menacing contributor.
At the very highest level, it is known that by reducing poverty, unemployment, which produces feelings of relative deprivation, inequality, which produces the feeling of being treated unfairly, alienation and anomie, may reduce incentives for people to turn to crime, violent, property, or drug. National, social, and situational crime prevention in their own ways reduce exclusion and marginalization by excessive inequality in one form or the other, and is at the core of success as emphasized by the UN guidelines for the prevention of crime. The governments of member states of the community, therefore, must have a central role in the prevention and reduction of crime and violence. Countries in the Caribbean are striving to achieve a greater balance between the criminal justice approach and violence and preventative approaches.
St. Lucia's National Security Minister Philip Lacobiniere made a case for commitment and action.
While the Caribbean Human Development Report of 2010 documents some positive developments for Caribbean countries, particularly in the areas of health and education, we should remember that sustainable human development must capture qualitative political, social, and economic development. For example, access to education must be weighed against achieving functional literacy and preparing our youngsters for entering the job market. Our planning must also factor in changes in job demographics. We must accelerate the training and implementation of and integration of our communities to meet the demands of the technological age and in support of our health system and human wellness requirements.
The region, Mr. Lacobiniere added, has been good at containing crime rather than citizen security.
Our mission and strategies have centered around the containment of crime, I would suggest. Citizen security, on the other hand, represents a broader focus on human security and involvement, and it must integrate the involvement and participation of all citizens in security, in their security and for the security of the state. It requires adherence to human rights and human rights values, the rule of law, and the fundamental rights enshrined in our respective constitutions. The state and all of its agents must be accountable for their actions and their decisions at all levels, including the political level.